Okay, so I decided to make a knife out of Magnacut, and in the end, I'll explain why specifically Magnacut. But I kind of want to just talk about my knife design basically, and what this is meant to do, and why I designed it the way I did. So basically, I decided to go with this like offset blade, and just to start it off, it's the reason is I wanted to make a knife that is forward heavy and that is point orientated basically. So so when you hold this, all right, normally your hand, this is normally how you hold basically. If you're pointing forward with a knife, it's like this. This basically aligns more parallel to the ground when you do that. So when you do swing at something, this is going to be mostly the contact point. Just because you're not going at it at an angle, you're basically going at it like this. So I wanted something like that, and then also from there, everything else I did was basically to accommodate that. Another thing I like about this design, I personally like ice pick grip. I've never been in a self-defense situation where I had to use a knife, nothing like that. So, but I personally like a self-defense knife to be to be good at an ice pick grip, basically. So, when holding a knife in ice pick grip, well, holding this knife, this thing is slightly forward. You see there, my hand's there. So this is slightly forward, and so this for me feels a lot better. So that when you ever jab, so when I'm holding it in ice pick grip, or any knife in general, and I jab with it, I have to basically twist my hand up to basically be able to jab, to go forward like that. And with this kind of design, when the blade is tilted slightly, so this is kind of like a boomerang slightly. It helps with that. So with basically getting your point to go where you want it to go without twisting your hand too much. The handle itself, so I chose to do a chili pepper design, just like this one, and I'll compare it to this one in a second just to get the points across that I want to make. But this in an ice pick grip, so you can see where the bottom of my hand is, and this is designed for my hand. So you can see where the bottom of the hand is, you can see where my fingers go, and then I can do this if I want to, or this if I want to. So I can put my hand here, my thumb up here, which some people like to do. I personally don't do that much, but I can if I want to. And that's how it looks basically. So, so for ice pick grip, it works for this particular handle, and then also if you want to use saber grip. So for saber grip, same thing for the handle. There's certain features. One of them, this being this little hump, which I'm gonna put. So I'm gonna put jimping here, and then jimping here. Here for your thumb. Here for your thumb. So because this is, I want it to be point orientated, it makes sense that the saber grip is what I should design the handle for. So here is saber grip on this knife. Any knife that you have, like mostly all right, so if you want snap cuts, fast snap cuts, hard snap cuts, I've found that having this the part where your pinky goes to be slightly perpendicular to the handle helps a lot, simply because you're able to put more force forward with the bottom of your hand to make that snap cut. So that helps here for snap cuts. Saber grind helps for same thing, for your grip to promote. Sorry about so I'm like stuttering, to promote snap cuts. And this particular hump here, so I try to do this as well as I could without it being like too bulbous or like a hot spot. So if you see this, here's where my two fingers go. I try to make it as straight as I could. I didn't want to go completely like this because it would just look weird. But this is enough. I felt that this is comfortable enough to basically still do snap cuts, still hold it in just a regular way without having a hot spot here. I wanted to get away from a 90-degree angle would be perfect. Not 90 degree, but let's say 45 or something would be perfect for the two fingers being like for snap cuts and stuff. But it would be a pain when you just use it as a regular handle or when you do ice pick grip. So I don't want to point. That would be a problem. So this was a happy medium, basically median. This. So one of the things that an off-center knife helps with is, so it also offers protection to your hand. And then obviously down here too, because it is below your hand. It also keeps your hand where it's supposed to be, simply because you can't go past those 2 points, these two, like quillion or whatever you would call that, and then just the bottom of the blade. So I am going to round this out. I'm not going to round this out, but it will have the jimping there. And then so now, I'll talk about the grind. So what I'm planning on doing. And the grind of this particular knife, what I want to do is go high and then go real low, so to make it real thick in the front. So from here forward, I want it to be reinforced as much as I can behind the edge. And then from here back, just flat, as high as I can without it like being too much of a transition. I don't want it to be like a devastating transition from super thick to very thin. And the reason for that is I want to keep as much weight as possible in the front, and then I also want the point to be as strong as possible too. And that's why I'm also planning on, so basically for tantos, you go completely flat in the spine. I mean, just straight, parallel, and then all of a sudden about slightly more than half an inch, well, around half an inch, you just taper to a tip, and that gives you a crazy strong tip, and it's still functional. So I want to do the same thing with this. I want to go just completely flat, parallel, I mean, and then about this point, taper it down to a tip. So from there, I'll basically do something like this. Yeah, we'll see. And yeah, so after I do that, then I have basically the choice of whether or not I have to taper the handle. So the handle itself, I have the choice of making holes to make it lighter, to make it more forward heavy. Like let's say if I get the grind I want and it's not heavy enough in the front, I can now make holes in the handle, which I don't like doing, or I can taper it, which is something I like to do. I can taper it if I need to get that weight forward as much as I can. So we'll see on that part. And then just to compare it to this, to show you what I was talking about. So this is the same type of handle. This is a chili pepper handle. This isn't as, curved downward as this is, because it's not necessary. And I'll show you why in a second. I'll show you the difference of where my hand placement is for both these knives. And it does have a belly, but it's not as drastic as this one in the angle that it's in. The other one, this one comes down even more. So here's my hand placement on this one. All right, so this is, you can see the blade going up. And the reason for that is this is where I want the blade to hit for this particular knife. So I want it to hit here where it's a circle, and then travel up where it's basically a karambit. So I want it to hit here and then here, which is fine. This particular edge is where I want it to be. This angle of the blade is where I want it to be. This knife, like I said, is tip oriented. So here's, let's try to do it. So this is where it's going to hit, basically this area, and that's what I want. Last thing, the blade shape itself. I did have a choice. I still have a choice of making this completely symmetrical. This is a spear point, so this is for also a spear point's like perfect for like penetrating. It's it's very good for that. But I could have made this completely symmetrical, but I didn't because I still want this curve here just to add to cutting a little bit better. Because if it's a very shallow, very straight, if it's the same as this basically, then the cutting ability would be less. And the reason for that is because when you hit something, you want the least amount of contact point, whatever you're hitting, just to increase the amount of force that you're giving off to that object. So if this was, the more curved it is like this, the smaller the contact point at any given spot. But the flatter it is, then the bigger the contact point when you hit something. So I wanted to curve this and still have it basically like a spear point. So yeah. And then, holy wow, I've been talking for a while. So real quick, I'll talk about why I chose Magnacut. Right now, it's kind of a hype steel. I don't like that. I don't like things that are in hype, basically. I try to stay away from, but I saw some videos of Magnacut being compared to Vanix, and Vanix is like my favorite steel. And in terms of edge retention, this Magnacut did a lot more cuts than Vanix at the same Rockwell hardness. And then also Magnacut is supposed to be tougher at higher Rockwell hardnesses. This is recommended from 64 to like 62 Rockwell hardness. The maximum for Vanix is around like 60. I've seen some people get it to 61, but 60 is recommended. So that basically piqued my interest, and I've seen people there's videos on YouTube of people actually doing the tests. And then also the other thing is, I've seen saltwater tests on this thing, and it has done very well too. Nobody has said that it's better in saltwater tests than Vanix or even LC200N, but it's good enough that Spyderco is using it for its salt series, which are meant to be used around saltwater all the time. So I'm basically very, very intrigued, very interested in seeing how this does. I will test it just like in saltwater. Basically, I will do the galvanic corrosion test on Magnacut. I do have pieces here from when I made the knife, just to continue that testing and see where it lies in comparison to basically H1 and Vanix, which what I have now. And in the future, I'll get LC200N and then compare it to that also. Okay, so any questions or suggestions, let me know. All right.